Let me sure. Let me put myself on the stop.
I should do that too. Good idea.
When do you want to sit over there, or you want to be completely out of the shot?
Yeah, just focus on him. It doesn't need to be us.
All right, whenever you're ready.
We want to see you guys too, though.
I don't. The people don't. We're just doughy. You look like a hipster. We just look doughy and old. Not you.
Hipsters is it?
I look doughy and old.
I would argue I look a little.
You just look tired, and that's like a hipster.
It's 101.7 WFNX live from the Coachella House.
Chris from Yeasayer joins us now. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Chris, let's talk about ambling Alp. What does it mean?
What does anything mean? I don't know. What do you mean? What does it mean?
What is an ambling Alp?
Ambling Alp is a nickname of a particularly fearsome Italian boxer from the 1930s. His name was Primo Carnera, so that was his nickname.
Are you really into boxing?
I'm
Or are you into the 1930s?
I'm not really into boxing. My grandfather was a professional boxer, so kind of just by familial sort of history, I got passed down a lot of stories. You know, he was a boxer. He's Irish, English and Irish. He was boxing in the 30s and 40s, right around the time of World War II, right before the war, basically. And he just kind of passed down these stories, and so I'm interested in that era. You know, basically anything up to Muhammad Ali. That's like the characters, like the archetypes that were developed in that time, and you know, I just reading about it. I was reading about Joe Louis, and you know, this name came up, and I just thought it'd be an interesting story to try to write about Joe Louis or try to write some of his opponents, things like that.
It's funny. Have you seen that Russell Crowe movie where he's the boxer?
Yeah, about with Max Baer. Actually, my grandfather fought Max Baer's brother.
Really?
Yeah, him, Maxie Baer, and I forget his brother's name, but yeah, it was like I didn't know this until I'd actually written. I'd written a song, and then my dad was like, you know, busted out all these like old fight sheets and stuff. So it was pretty interesting.
The new album has a lot. The new album has a really interesting sound that I can't really pinpoint. That's probably a good thing. It's a very unique sound, but it has. I almost want to say like, an almost like Moody Blues from the 80s kind of quality to it.
Okay, yeah.
And I hope that you don't find that offensive.
No, I don't find anything offensive.
Fantastic.
I enjoy any comparison I've ever heard. You know, so.
Is that your first Moody Blues, 1980s Moody Blues comparison?
Yeah, probably Moody Blues 1980s. You know, I've heard Moody Blues, or I hear some of like the kind of more epic 60s and 70s rock. You know, I hear like, which I don't really think we sound like. You know, I hear like King Crimson or something from people. I don't know where they get that from.
I hear Shine Down a lot in your music. Shine Down, some early Nickelback.
Yeah,
sort of.
I've heard. You know, someone said that once because our bassist used to have that real long hair and he had a mustache, so people said we sounded like Nickelback. I was like, maybe we might look like Nickelback. I don't think we sound like them.
But on the record, the drum sound especially, I think is where I kind of get that 80s Moody Blues thing. What did you do for the drums on the record?
I don't know. It's different from song to song. I mean, we treat the studio like an instrument, you know. I mean, we basically build it and live in it for 3 months, and that's kind of how we like to work. So, you know, and it's just a lot of experimenting. But, you know, we were, to be honest, working in the house of a drummer who was a big 70s and 80s drummer, and he basically rented us his house and let us take it over, which also meant renting us all his drums and all his gear. You know,
which had to be fun, right?
It was awesome. It's the best way to make a record. And I honestly like the idea of making a record that sounds like, you know, a band from a certain era, then trying to like all those bands from the 60s and 70s that made records in the 80s. Like I like Dylan's like records from the late 80s. Yeah. You know, stuff he did with Daniel Lanois, because it just doesn't sound like Dylan, you know? And I think real Dylan heads don't like that stuff. Or I like Leonard Cohen from the 80s, or I like, you know, whoever. Like I like the Lindsey
George Harrison from the 80s.
or you know, I like the new Lindsey Buckingham record is actually amazing. You know, I don't think it gets any love or anything. Gift of Screws, or maybe that's not the newest one. It was one of the ones from the 2000s. It's a crazy sounding record, you know, and I dig it. And you know, it's a cheesy. It's like it's old man rock. Yeah, but I dig it. You know, like I'm into that, so that's cool.
I like yacht rock, so you know, I'm really into Supertramp.
There you go.
Bertie Higgins.
I think there's nothing wrong with Supertramp. We'll get down with some Hall & Oates, man, any day. So.
Well, Hall & Oates has had some sort of crazy resurgence. The Bird and the Bee covered all these Hall & Oates songs on their new record. Like, there's something happening with Hall & Oates that people are like back into them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think like basically what we're seeing now is a certain kind of, for better or worse, a certain openness to some sounds that were previously deemed too cheesy to touch. You know, the 90s had like a lot of cynicism, and that was like some of the interesting thing about that time. But now, like, a lot of that jaded apathy has kind of, I think as we were getting further and further from like 60s, 70s, 80s, I mean, we're like very far on from that. You can start to reflect on some of that cheesy stuff and be like, actually, it's kind of cool. Like,
it gives it.
You sort of get removed from it, and it all of a sudden. I remember like in the 80s, it was like, when I was a kid, but I had friends, and it was like no one listened to the Beach Boys or the Beatles because that wasn't cool, because that was cheesy. And now all of that stuff's legends. That's classic rock. I mean, the Chili Peppers are classic rock now. It's just everything's turned on its head, man. The future is just weird.
Well, we really love your new record. We're playing the song.
Great.
So thanks for doing this for us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for bringing me this beautiful house.
Awesome. All right. Do you mind doing a quick, like, hey,